All right, well, thank you for joining us today. It looks like we've got our echo back again. I don't know why. Driving me crazy. Hopefully when I stop talking, it'll go away. So I'll just welcome Todd and the team from SGI. And who's presenting you guys?
So Peter, so it'll be three of us, myself, Nick, Todd, and James, and we'll just do a segue between each other.
Which entity should I need to transfer the ball to, present the role to?
James.
Done.
So I think we're just waiting for the slides to come up.
Looking good. All
right. So look, Peter, I'll make a start. Apologies for the 7 minutes late. Welcome to the presentation this afternoon. My name is Nick Gorger. I'm the General Manager for SGI in Asia Pacific, and joining me today to present is Todd Churchwood, who's one of my Senior System Engineers. He's based in the SGI Brisbane office, and he has architected a lot of the solutions we've deployed in Australia, and also James Hill, who's one of our Senior Professional Services Manager, also based in Brisbane, and deployed many of the solutions we're going to talk about. And Peter, thank you for organising the session. If we move to slide 2, you'll see we have the agenda that we want to cover in the 45-odd minutes we've been allocated. So there are 5 points that we'll sort of cover as we go through the presentation. And then we've allowed 15 minutes at the end of the presentation to answer any questions. We'll make this presentation available. We'll send a copy to Peter, and he can send it out to you all. And also at the end of the presentation is my contact details, where if you have any other questions, please contact me, and we can follow up for you. If we go to slide number 3, for those of you who aren't familiar with SGI, I just wanted to give a very brief overview. We were founded in 1982, a US-based company, approximately 1,300 employees, offices in around 50 countries, and in the region we have staff in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, Adelaide, Perth, and in New Zealand. As the slide says there, our real focus is on technical computing. That's what we have been doing since day one, since we were founded. That's where we put the bulk of our effort, as opposed to some companies where that's only a small part of their business. Just to give you an idea, in Australia and New Zealand, the higher education and research market is about 53% of our business. So it's always been in excess of 50%, and that's not going to change. So it's a very big focus of our organisation. Slide number 4, if we just move on to that. What that does is really cover the main markets that we focus across the technical computing markets, and they are predominantly 3. Cloud Internet, technical computing, which is mainly HPC, and then everything we do around the management of big data. Just very quickly, some of you may be aware that we merged with another company in the US called Rackable 3 or 4 years ago, and they were known for what solutions they provided to the internet and cloud market, principally off the back of infrastructure that was very dense and very power efficient. So companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Yahoo are all big users of our technology, and Amazon, for example, purchases something like $100 million a year in our cloud solutions. In Australia, we have implementations including Q-Cloud in Brisbane. Technical computing, most of you know that SGI focuses in that in that part of the market, and we have a broad range of HPC solutions, which we really won't touch on today, but I think most of you are aware that that's something that we've been doing for a very long time. And then the crux of the presentation today is everything that we're doing in terms of management of technical data. And I think everyone on this call clearly understands that technical data is different to business data. It tends to be unstructured, it tends to be very large, and the way we manage and store and retrieve that data is definitely different to how we would do that for business or more structured type data, and we'll talk about that as we kind of go through. If we move quickly to slide number 4, there we give just a broad example of our typical type of customer in our region, and you'll see very many there. James will talk about a few examples in a little bit more detail throughout the presentation, but if we focus on technical data stores, just some to come to mind, ANU have about 20 petabytes of technical data being managed. CSIRO, that was one of our earliest customers, and have been running a very large technical data store for all their users for some 21 years. In fact, data that they stored 21 years ago, they can still access today. So that's a very good story. One of the more recent ones, IVEC and the Pawsey Centre in particular, as you'll probably be aware, they received a lot of money from the federal government to spearhead Australia's push to gaining the SGI project. And recently, in June, through James, we've implemented a data store that is capable of storing 100 petabytes of technical data, and that's now up and running. But we have many examples, and we'll talk about those sort of as we go through. So that gives you a flavour of SGI and the type of things we do, without going into a lot more detail than that. What I'd like to do now is pass on to Todd and go into more detail about the type of solutions that we supply, particularly going into more detail with regard to the storage solutions. I'll now hand over to Todd. Todd?
I may have muted you, Todd.
There we go. You there? You there?
Yep.
Okay. So as Nick alluded to, we have many products and many different which basically cover compute and storage, software products, and we have services. And we generally wrap all of these together, elements from each of these 4 pillars into every solution that we create. So we have a comprehensive range of products and offerings, and many of them are complementary, and we generally combine aspects of each of these into each solution. So even if you're looking at storage, we're generally adding some servers and software and things like that, and so wrapping it up in services. So we're really delivering total solutions. And one of the key things that often where we excel is where we get the opportunity to offer full solutions rather than just big products. If people ask us for individual products and very low-level technical specifications, there's not much opportunity for us to sort of innovate and deliver some of the capability that we're actually renowned for. Example of just our software, our core software stack, and you can sort of see how we build up from our hardware systems, with servers and storage and base level file system and volume manager, and then some other layers that we put on top. Generally with our hierarchical storage manager, DMF, and sometimes with our asset management and workflow solutions on top. One aspect that we do have here is we've got quite deep integration between all of the pieces because we're controlling all of these pieces, and so we can support all of the pieces and the full interactions between all of the pieces. This is just one aspect. There's third-party pieces that we have that we generally bring into solutions as well. So this is just sort of our core software stack. On the hardware side, we have a number of products, and this covers everything from basic chassis with lots of disks to many servers with storage in them, to RAID arrays, different kinds of RAID arrays. We have we take products from different we OEM different products from different vendors, and so we're not just pushing one vendor's products or point products. We're not trying to make a product fit an opportunity or any requirements. We've got a lot of things to choose from, and we can pick and choose the best things to match. And there's just a couple of examples of the products, but we don't really offer just products. We're generally offering full solutions.
So just do a check. Okay, we've just put ourselves on with our speakers off for a second while we're talking and stuff there. Okay. Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's the audio's a bit choppy, but it's it's not bad.
Okay, I'll get a little bit closer, and hopefully you can hear me better.
Yep. I mean, the problem with the echo is Nick had called in from somewhere nearby.
Basically, it says cost-effective tiered storage. There we go. So one of the key products that we have in the storage space is a hierarchical storage management system, which is called DMF. And what this gives us is an ability to go beyond just disk storage. So when you have a huge amount of data, generally you can't get enough disk. You can't assemble enough. You can't attach it to the servers. You can't afford to buy that amount of disk storage. And so you generally have to overflow onto some other medium. And historically that's been to tape. And so the product we have, DMF, started in 1991. It's been around for quite a long time. And you can think of it as virtual disk. Much like you have virtual memory in a PC where you run out of RAM, you start swapping to the swap file. This is a way where if you run out of disk, you can start swapping to tape drive if you like. Generally, you don't operate in that manner, but it's effectively removing data blocks from the file system and putting them out onto tape, and then when you need them back or you try to access the file, it automatically will pull the files. So it actually leaves the inodes or the pointers to the files on the file system, and you still see all of your files and you think they're all still there, but you can operate in a way which is much more cost effective and from an energy perspective much more efficient. And then you can also get multiple copies in the back end and put them in different libraries and even in different sites and get that resiliency and redundancy. And as it's migrating, it can be migrating all the time, you don't really have a backup window because your backup is really just the inodes of the file system. And so your backup window can be really quick. So when you've got huge amounts of data, this is the way to manage it. And DMF is actually quite a good fit for the concept of the vault in RDSI parlance. So here's a slide that we often pull out, which is our big DMF customers. This slide is usually immediately out of date as soon as you write it because the customers are getting so much data and they're always expanding. But these are some very long-term DMF sites. The one on the top, Aussie, with 100 petabyte DMF license. But many of these customers have been with us for a long time. And a couple of aspects that aren't there, a lot of these customers are starting to get huge numbers of files as well. So it's not just about petabytes and capacity, but it's actually how do you manage huge numbers of small files. And so with these customers, we're always looking to improve and add capability to their solutions. So it's not just storing lots of data, it's how do we start to manage the workflow and deal with huge volumes of small files and things like that. Another solution that we have, Luster, is generally a HPC solution. It's used for high performance object-based parallel file system, usually for working storage for HPC. But we're seeing that some customers are starting to implement this as, say, like a global file system or site-wide, center-wide file system where they can share data or huge volumes of project-based data between their various systems. And that naturally extends to remote sites. And so they're looking to build this centralized pool of storage and big shared file system that can be shared with high-performance computing locally, it can be shared with cloud systems locally, and it can be shared with clients on the other end of the internet. That's just one aspect I thought I'd talk about, even though Lustre is generally fairly specific products. But SGI has a product, SGI Lustre, and SGI Lustre is essentially the Intel or WAM Cloud Lustre that's been taken in. We build it and we add our own patches and we basically get stability and we support our own release of Lustre. We can provide the full support. We can provide the initial solution architecture, and we can even do integration with the Intel or WAM Cloud Lustre support as well. So we have, again, a full solution on the Lustre side with servers, the storage hardware, and all of the software support. One area that's really growing for us is in what I sort of group together as Hadoop and cloud. These things take a lot of different forms, but in general, there's sort of three areas. Firstly, Hadoop. Hadoop is a specific application where you're trying to mine through a lot of the data and seeing a lot of interest from commercial people, at least, talking about, we need to do our analysis and business intelligence with Hadoop. But SGI has actually delivered some enormous Hadoop systems, and Nick mentioned one of our customers, a few of our customers earlier, but one of them, eBay, who bought a lot of our rackable server hardware, has built some enormous Hadoop systems to do basically analysis of all of the items and all of the sales that they're making. And we have other huge customers in defense. One single installation was 100 racks, and that was just one cluster for Hadoop. So you can imagine the sorts of things that they're sifting through based on some of the recent topical news items. So we have a lot of experience doing Hadoop. We have some customized hardware solutions for Hadoop. We're not doing the software so much as taking the Apache or Cloudera distribution and adding the other validated pieces and delivering full solutions. And that 100 rack system I mentioned, that customer was actually very power constrained. They couldn't get enough power out of their local substation. And so there's actually integration between the software levels and the hardware node manager on the nodes that can throttle the nodes and the power usage of the system based on any factors that they wish to choose from the software. So again, lots of integration between all of the pieces. The second aspect here, optimized hardware. Nick mentioned Amazon, which is probably ongoing as one of our largest customers every quarter, but the Microsoft Azure cloud as well has a large amount of SGI hardware behind that. And our aspect there is generally that we're building systems and coming up with system designs and customizing them specifically for these kinds of workloads. So even though we're not coming up with the software, these guys are doing their own software. We're building the servers and helping to design and define the solutions based on their requirements, so we have a good understanding there. And then lastly, the third aspect is people who are trying to build their own clouds. So be that people inside their own commercial organisations, or as we're seeing now in the university space, trying to use the open source tools. And as Nick mentioned at the start, we did QCloud is a good example we've done here in Brisbane, and that was an OpenStack based system. Increasingly, we're seeing a lot of interest in the set file system, and we have another commercial arrangement with the Scality product, which is similar to the Amazon S3 style object storage. So these are other areas that are not your traditional hardware RAID based or shared file system based storage, but things where you can get block based, object based, and shared file system storage in sort of new, different kind of ways. And we're sort of building up quite a body of knowledge and experience here. And so one thing I'd say is if you are interested in these kind of things, that you should definitely engage us because we do have a huge amount of organisational experience in these areas. Now I'll hand over to James.
So we'll just do a sound check again. Is everybody okay? Peter, is things okay from your side?
Yeah, I've got everybody muted except the speaker at the moment. I think the problem relates to the fact that somehow where Nick's called in from and where you are seem to feed each other. But if I keep Nick muted and you get live, goes live, works fine. So press on.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just leave my speaker on then, and if you get echo, let me know and I'll turn it off again. So I'm going to talk, first of all, a bit about LiveArc software, which we have. Now, Todd has covered the hardware and the products like DMF that manage the bits and bytes and moving it between disk and tape, depending on how elastic you want your storage to be or whether you want all your data on disk. LiveArc is another product that we have in our portfolio that operates at a higher level and is really a knowledge management or a information management product. And for RDSI nodes, it does nearly all of the higher level capabilities that RDSI have expressed as would be required to implement a fully featured data management stack. So it's a product that is more focused around research and researchers. You start off by implementing it based on projects so that the project might own the data, and that project can then provide authorization to their research community to use that data. And you can then set up communities of interest using LiveArc so that other people might be able to search your data for information that could be of value to them. One of the interesting things is because it extracts metadata from all the files, you can search on the metadata and you don't have to share your actual data. So the data itself might be subject to ethics approvals or security permissions or university agreements that have to be signed, etc. But if you can find other people that are working in your field and are doing the same sort of things, you might be able to stand on, assist each other in making greater leaps forward in the research and development fields that you're working in. The other thing that LiveArc does is manages the lifespan of data. So you can say that if it's health data, it has to be kept for 10 or 15 or 30 years, depending on what state you're in and what sort of data it is, whether it's patient data. So LiveArc has very strong security capabilities around it for managing health data. And it can also, after 15 years, delete it if that's what the requirements are. And you can audit your data, you can know who's used it. There's a whole raft of management capabilities that are very useful for organizations. And as well as that, researchers come and go from universities and different project people come. So keeping the context of the research, what its purpose was, what the research was done for, when the data was collected, because that makes sense of the data to other people further down the track. And the initial people who were working with that data and produced it may have moved on. So, and how they collected it might be important to understanding and knowing whether it's relevant to reuse. So there is a web-based graphical interface. This is on the next slide. It should be coming up. It's a Java-based client that operates in a web browser, and the objective of this client, LiveArc client, is to cover 80 or 90% of the common things that researchers do as users. So there are other capabilities that might best be exposed as scripting and batch mode processing, and yeah, plugin. So you can do plugins at the back end to transcode data from one form to another. There's all sorts of automation that can be done at the back end, and also at the front end, people can develop can produce scripted or Java plugins that enhance the capabilities of this front end. I have another diagram in a moment, but it's very, very powerful. It handles geospatial data. You can do three-dimensional searches for data in the GUI, draw a rectangle around a map area and find the data that's relevant to your search. We've also proposed a dashboard for users that who are using LiveArc as part of the RDSI proposal that was put up. This would provide users that access the system information about how much data they have available, how much they've used, where it's being used, etc., and dealing with requests that might come in for access to their data and so forth. So there are over 1,000 different services that LiveArc offers at the back end, and you might see here MediaFlux/LiveArc. So it's a product that is sold under both names, MediaFlux and LiveArc. Originally MediaFlux, but the name MediaFlux wasn't able to be used worldwide because it was another product, and because of trademark issues, it's been renamed to LiveArc. We still use the terms interchangeably. It's exactly the same product. And some customers have implemented MediaFlux and know it as MediaFlux, and others might see the term LiveArc used. So more recently, there have been many capabilities added to this product to provide NFS file interfaces, for instance, to the data repository. So it's very easy for people to have an NFS share and just access that from their Linux or Windows clients, copy data in or out, and as the data is ingested into the LiveArc system, the metadata is extracted and stored. And metadata can be held with different permissions to the data so that it's accessible for search where the data isn't.
Interestingly, for NFS, the actual mounts can be different for each person based on their credentials and their rights. And so they'll see different views of the same data based on who they are and what they're allowed to see. And so the file system or the files can effectively be presented in different ways based on these different views.
Yeah, and that view can be changed by a metadata. So one piece of metadata might be, is this data published or not? And if I, James, have a mount that says I'm working on pre-published data, and Friday has a mount to the same file system saying he only sees things that are published, as soon as I add a tag to the data to say it's published, the data then appears in Todd's mount. But it's the same file system. So it's a virtual NFS interface. It's very powerful and capable of doing very neat workflow using just adding metadata tags to data that people are just unable to even see that the data exists until that tag is added to the data. Now this LiveArc MediaFlux works with hand in glove with DMF. So DMF has policy-based migration, and it's the LiveArc policies, which might be much more at a business level, can map to different DMF policies. So that you might say this data has to be stored on disk and held on disk for 60 days, and there must be copies on tape at 2 different sites. And after 60 days, the on-disk copy can be released to free up disk blocks if necessary. All small files are always kept on disk, and all sorts of different sort of strategies, operational and business strategies can be deployed through policies. And the combined policies of LiveArc and DMF are very, very powerful. At the bottom we have disk and tape, so LiveArc doesn't have to store stuff in SGI disk. It can store in other vendors' disks. That could be Apache or whatever. So, and we support many different tape vendors: Oracle, Technologic, IBM, etc. We also have implemented connections from LiveArc through to the HPC system, so you can push the data into PBS Pro for job queuing, get it processed, extract the results back into LiveArc and store those along with the original information, so that it creates an end-to-end track of what sort of where the research is at and where the data comes from. The next slide shows how LiveArc combined with DMF covers all sorts of capabilities that are necessary for organisations to appreciate, from the data governance, the storage technology, data protection, data retention and curation, handles multi-tenanted data from different organisations stored in one system, and provides, using DMF, a very low energy way of storing the data for long term, because the power used by tapes is so much less. It's a very effective way of storing this so that it looks like it's online, it looks like it's always there. Your indexing and everything through LiveArc is always available to find and reuse your data in whatever way you desire. So I'll just move on from LiveArc now into the SGI services. I work for SGI Professional Services, and we have both professional services and our support services, our installation teams and our post-installation fix-it capabilities. So we cover the whole gamut, from consulting up front on what's required, the solution, integration with third-party products, whether there's any software to be developed, and we then can manage the installation. So my job is frequently project managing the implementation, performance tuning, system administration, etc. So we often, our customers want someone on site for some time after installation to implement best-of-breed, world's best practice policies, and we call that managed services. So as well as that, we have our warranty and break fix support. We have some customer examples here that we just cover quickly, given the time's moving on. One of them is the Queensland Centre for Medical Genomics in the IMB at University of Queensland. They have a full range of SGI's products, from working up from the bottom, from storage through DMF and through LiveArc at MediaFlex. And they have completely automated their workflow of the data, taking their data off their gene sequences, storing it, putting it onto DMF into multiple sites for off-site resilience and business recovery. At the same time, it gets queued up, put into PBS Pro queue, put through the HPC system, and the resulting outputs extracted and bundled up into project-specific bundles and handed back to the researchers to assess the results. So they are very, very happy with the complete business solution that's implemented here that solves a lot of the problems and lets their researchers get on and look at their research rather than dealing with the data at a data level. ANU, we have, well, you might like to talk about ANU.
Yeah, so the ANU system is a large multi-site system with some very large tape libraries. I believe it's in the order of 14 radiowaves, tens of petabytes of this. This is a site where we're looking at, again, the site-wide luster concept. It has linkages to their business and enterprise groups as well. It has hardware storage virtualization, quite a comprehensive solution.
And SGI have a number of services people are on site helping them manage their data.
Yeah, this is definitely a site where there's quite a large managed services component, so multiple people on site managing those systems.
So CSIRO, as Nick mentioned right at the beginning, have been a long-term DMF customer, and they have had their data in DMF and moved from, I think, across 3 data centers and about 4 or 5 different technologies from different disks and tapes, etc., like that, and managed their data over the 22 years, I think it is now, that had their system implemented, and never lost data. So that's a very good story, and it provides good value for them. Now, CSIRO have also implemented other sites more recently. They keep growing the number of sites they're putting in, and more recently we've implemented the Aussie data centre in Perth with very large 10 storage arrays and 6 petabytes of disk and 2 large tape libraries, and as you mentioned, 100 petabyte DMF license. I'll hand over to Nick now, and he can talk about the pricing model. So I think, Peter, you might need to unmute him.
Okay, Peter, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Nick. I've unmuted.
Okay, thank you.
I'm now going to mute James to prevent any looping.
Okay. All right, thanks, James and Todd. I've just got a few more slides before we wrap up and take some questions. So, as you're probably aware, we're on the Quartet VEPA panel. One of the things that we wanted to do is to make sure that we give or provide all the members really good value for money for all of the solutions that James and Todd spoke about. So what we did is, as part of putting in our application, we modelled some of our largest, I suppose, sales that we've done in the region. We modelled that pricing, and many of those sales are over $5 million. And what we did is we then set up a discount model that would give all the members the same level of very aggressive pricing that would be leveraged by some of our biggest customers. So it doesn't matter whether it's a sale of $5 million or you're only spending $10,000 for any of our products, the discounts are very high. To give an example, they range up to 65% depending on the product, so that's all listed on our submission to the panel. The other thing that we do as well is, because we don't just focus on just delivering a point product or the like, we've essentially made it so that you just contact us, let us know the type of solution you want to solve, or if there's something particular that you need, one of our consultants will give you a call. We'll then come up with what the solution is, apply the VEPA discounts, the accurate exchange rate, any support requirement that you have, delivery, etc., and give you a firm quotation that you can go on. So it's very, very simple and straightforward. But the key thing is that we've essentially made sure that all the members, by pulling together, do gain from the pricing that we've been able to secure to some of our largest customers. On one of the earlier slides that Todd had, he did have on the slide that last year we sold some 600 petabytes of storage globally, which is a huge amount of storage, and that grows every year. And to give an example, that's more than some dedicated storage companies like DDN and or Cray combined. So we do get some very good economies of scale that we've been able to pass on to all the members of a Quartet VEPA panel. If we move to the next slide, I just want to talk about one example that we submitted as part of our submission. Most of you are aware that when the request for panel members went out, there was a request to cost out various scenarios ranging from 1 petabyte growing all the way to 50 petabytes. And so here is a snapshot of the 50 petabyte example, but it does really show some of the concepts that Todd and James were talking about regarding some of the issues and the costs associated with managing very large amounts of data. So most of our customers, when we talk to them, if they have 1, 2, 5, 10 or more petabytes, the common factor is that most of the time there's at least 85% of that data that's inactive and hasn't been used for a long period of time. And so it becomes very uneconomical to store that large amount of data just on spinning disk. It's the most expensive way to do it. It uses the most amount of floor space and it uses the most amount of power. And so as your data store grows and you start getting 2, 3, 4, 5 petabytes and above, there are much smarter ways of handling unstructured data. And many of the examples that James spoke about have adopted a tiered data store approach where they will have a certain amount of very fast spinning disk, which acts as a disk cache. They might have a secondary, much lower cost disk as a secondary disk cache, and then the bulk of the data store is on tape. But with products like DMF, the entire data store is always accessible to the user, whether it's on disk or tape, and it's transparent. Obviously, if the data resides on disk because it's been used more frequently, the access will be at disk speeds. If it's on tape, there will be a delay of getting the data off the tape, and that can vary, 15 seconds or more, depending on the size. But if you look at this example down the bottom of the slide, the first is a disk-only solution for 50 petabytes, and it nets out to some $338 per terabyte. This data is about 12 months old, but the relativities are still the same. Uses 35 racks and 335 kilowatts of power per year. The second option is a combination of spinning disk, fast spinning disk, but made disk, which is disk that spins on and off depending on whether you're using it or not, and a HSM like DMF to manage the 2 tiers of disk, and you'll see the cost drops. And then when you get to a tiered data store that does have a reasonable tape component, you quickly find that the costs drop dramatically. The first example, a disk-only solution, high-quality disk, 50 petabytes, if you had to purchase it roughly 12 months ago, and not a lot has changed, was around 17 million. If you go to the third example where it's a tiered data store with disk and tape, it drops below 5 million to store 50 petabytes of data, and that includes the complete solution, support for 3 years, implementation. And if you look at the power, which is also important, and the footprint, it's a tenth of the power of spinning disk, and it's also roughly half the footprint. So it becomes very compelling to look at architecting the data store to match how you want to use the data, and definitely just considering disk can be the most inefficient and costly way to do it. This is described in detail in our submission, and I'll send Peter a white paper on this that he can distribute to people who are interested in finding out more. If we move to the next slide, I'll just give a minute for that slide to come up. Okay, this is kind of very much my second last slide, and the key thing that we want to kind of summarize here is that at SGI we really do look at trying to solve your solution and not just supply a little bit of product. And so our range, we covered it in some detail today, but obviously we can't in the time allocated, is very extensive. We have a range of our own compute and storage and networking products, and we also OEM some of the best of breed products from other companies, and we architect that as a complete solution that we support to solve your needs. And we're not at any point in time trying to push just a single product, but more a solution to the problem that you have. And as James mentioned, we support it throughout the region, and it's very broad to cover what we would believe, the bulk of the needs that any of the RDSI or courted members could possibly come up with. So it's very extensive. If we move to the second last slide, James. So the value that we believe we bring is that we do have a significant amount of knowledge and expertise in the technical computing market for both compute and storage. Many of our staff, like Todd and James, who are on our technical team, have been at SGI for over 10 years, and so we have a very experienced team. We have a very broad set of products to pretty much solve all your needs. We're registered on the panel. We're registered with GITC version 5. We're also, open to your own purchasing contracts as well, so we're very easy to do business with. And essentially, if we move to the last slide, which I think is the end of the presentation, I'm registered as a main contact on the panel. I know we've covered a lot in a short period of time, but if you have any questions, if you have any needs, please contact me, nickg@sgi.com, and I will put you onto one of my staff who can help you with your requirements. So, as I mentioned, we'll provide a copy of this presentation and some other material for you via Peter. We thank you for your time today, and Peter, we'd like to open it up for some questions.
Okie dokie. That's terrible, the echo. So it might be easier if people put questions through on the chat. So if anyone's got one, grab the chat session and bang in a question there. Well, I'll try and unmute all. Anyone want to jump in? No, doesn't sound like it. All right. Well, look, Nick, Todd, James, thank you very much for contributing today. I think the picture was great. The live arc solution is something that's still being very actively considered by RDSI and the node heads. So, looking forward to see the outcomes of those operations.
Thanks very much, Peter, and all the attendees. It was a pleasure to provide the presentation. And as I said, please contact me, and we'd gladly help you with any of your needs or answer any questions that you might think about, after this presentation. And Peter, thanks again for setting it up for us.
No worries. Thanks, Nick. Bye.